So I read a novel about chickens and chicken liberators. It's called Barn 8 by Deb Olin Umfert. And I read another of her books called Revolution a few years back. It had to do with a young woman in Nicaragua, I believe, during the Nicaragua, battles. So in the 80s, I think. Anyway, that was a while ago that I read that. But Barn 8 has to do with a girl, Jamie. Janie is from Brooklyn, New York, and she's with her mother. Her mother is Olivia Flores, and her mother does not tell her she's a single mother, as far as Janie knows. So Janie doesn't realize that she has a father, but Olivia decides to tell her at some point when she's in high school that she doesn't indeed have a father, and he's out in Iowa where she was before when she got pregnant and left him and went to New York for a better life and ended up having a better life. So so Janie is upset that she never met her father or didn't know anything about her father. So she runs away at age 15 and goes out to Idaho there. Oh, Iowa, I mean. Goes out to Iowa and meets her dad, and he's kind of disappointed. He's just kind of a hick, and he just sort of watches television and feeds her fast food and so forth, and so something happens to her mother, and she ends up having to stay out in Iowa and make a life for herself out in Iowa. So that's the sort of beginning of it. And then she her father is in agriculture, and he gets her a job. In the same sort of field, working with a woman named Cleveland, and Cleveland actually was babysat by Olivia, so she's preconditioned to want to be, want to know Janie because she knew Janie's mother, and Janie's mother was a big influence on her when she was a child, and they kind of continued on beyond when she really needed to have a babysitter, and we're friends, and then she took off to New York, and so that kind of left Cleveland on her own. So Cleveland's got this job inspecting egg farms. That's where the chickens come in. So hens, big industrial farm situations where there's like a million hens or more, all in these little cages and conveyor belts that take the eggs away, and we learn a little bit about all that. Not She doesn't really get into it all that much, but just a spattering of stuff like hens normally would not lay that many eggs. It's all kind of seasonal. Like, so I don't know, 13 eggs a year or something like that. So what goes on here is that the agriculture people have learned that if they have these lights that go on and make them, screw them up as far as what season it is and all that, they'll keep producing eggs, and that's how they get all these eggs out of all these hens, and becomes the industrial egg business that we see in the supermarkets. So Cleveland gets is kind of she's kind of a little bit of a rebel, and she takes one of the hens home, and she's not. Or she sees it out. She sees that it's out, escaped from the farm somehow, from big warehouse sort of farms, and so she puts it in her car and thinks, well, she can't take it back because then it'd be contaminated, and it would contaminate all the birds. Anyway, they would kill it. So she ends up keeping it. So she gets the idea of wanting to take more of them. So she keeps taking more of them, and Janie gets this job with her inspecting these industrial farms. So Janie gets an idea into her head that they should liberate all of them, like clean out some farm, like take a million hens out of the farm, and put them something in sanctuaries for hens or something. So So a gathering of a bunch of activists, animal rights activists, is they know someone else who's in the kind of that movement, and kind of people who retired from that movement. So there's a big gathering of these people, and they say, well, we need like 300 people to do this. And they end up getting like 400, 500 people, so way too many people. And it turns out to be a very chaotic situation. So I won't tell you any more about what goes on, but so it was kind of an interesting book. Of what I take away from it was sort of the the troubles and the what can go on in kind of activism in America, as how everyone just sort of so dreamy, and then there's a lot of them that are just crazy, and so there's some crazies within this group, and so it just it's a novel about kind of in a way the hopelessness of doing anything in America to make anything change. At least that's what I took away from it. In that we a, it's hard for us to organize, and B, half of us are just, inexperienced or just insane and liable to do just about anything that ends up screwing up the whole thing. So that's basically what goes on in Barn Eight, and it was pretty interesting little novel, a fast read, and I enjoyed it. I don't think it's probably not for everyone, but I quite liked it, and and Revolution was really good too. So Deb Olin Umfert, Barn Eight or Revolution, and I'll talk to you next time.